is on women in leadership. For some of you that don't know, my name is Boren. I'm the Dean of Student Affairs. And with me are two of my friends and colleagues, Dr. Cari Keller with the Criminal Justice Department, and Dr. Aldridge Sanford, who is with communication stuff.
I teach communication studies in the Department of Communication, Art, and Theater. We like to keep it real fancy over there.
So what we thought we would do today, for those of you who are in the class, we're going to use the BMI index as a point of reference. Did you get that and took the inventory? Good. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about some of our perspectives and experiences as women in 3 different leadership roles on campus. And then, as we've done with our other seminars, we're going to open it up to question and answer and have a dialogue. So with that being said, I'm going to turn over to Ms. Amy.
All righty. I love talking. I got some degrees in it. So we're going to do that. Okay, so can we get the PowerPoint on the screen? So many of you are my students in here, so you're not going to be real surprised about the first question I'm going to ask you today. And that is, why? Why should we talk about women in leadership in a seminar on leadership and change? And Dr. Betts isn't here to ask today why he wanted to do that. And this was his idea. He asked us to do this. So I want to ask you, why do you think we would talk about women in leadership in a leadership and change seminar?
Well,
yes, ma'am. Be sure to hit your button because we got visitors on the other campuses.
Oh, there's a button?
Yes, button. Hold it down.
Okay,
and the
sorry.
light is on.
Hi. Okay. I think it's because women, it's not too long ago that we were suppressed and we couldn't be leaders in our communities and in our culture, but now it's still new that we get to step up and you see more women becoming leaders in society and CEOs, vice presidents, and other such positions. Good.
Anybody want to add to that at all? What's your name?
Nicole.
Nicole, very good. Anybody want to add to that? It's a pretty good answer. Pretty solid, Nicole.
Thanks.
Wish I could take credit for you. That's very good. Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. We are seeing more women in leadership than ever before. Still not equal to men. I mean, just look around. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But we are seeing more women in leadership roles. And we are seeing more feminine leaders in leadership roles who aren't necessarily women. A man can be a feminine leader. And so today, and a woman can be a masculine leader, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So I think the best way to start today is to talk about the differences between sex and gender. And then we're going to move into talking a little bit about feminine and masculine leadership styles. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit, I'm giving you a preview for those of you who've taken Speech 1113, right? And then in a little bit I'm going to talk to you about my leadership style, how I rated on that BIM score that you all were given. The ones that are holding this class received that. If you didn't receive it, I can give you the link so you can take it later. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my scores. I'm going to give you some advice on how you can be the change. And then I'm going to turn it over to my friends here, and they'll reflect a little bit on their scores as well and their experiences. So let's talk about the differences between sex and gender and how I operationalize those, and how we operationalize those in the social sciences, in particular within communication studies, because that's my field. All right. So when I'm talking about sex and gender, and I imagine many of you could take a stab at this and probably get this on your own. All right. When I'm talking about sex, talk about what you're born with. All right, it's very biological. You're a man or you're a woman. For most people, that's very black and white. You're born with one set of sex organs. You know who you are. Now, that is not a universal truth. There are people who are born with both sex organs. Most often, their parents decide at birth whether they're going to be male or female. Some of those people end up being transgender and transsexual later on. That's not the only way we get transgender and transsexuals, but that's one way. So, but for most of us, we're born male or female, we know which one we are. All right, it's not really debatable for most of us. Gender is a different thing. Gender is what you learn. So gender exists on a continuum. Feminine, masculine. You can put them on either side of the continuum, doesn't matter. And it's a sliding scale. And it's conditional. There are some situations you may enter that you may be more masculine than feminine, and vice versa. But we all embody some percentage of masculinity and some percentage of femininity. And BIM, the inventory that we sent you all, allowed for one way to measure that. That is not the only way to measure that, and that inventory is a little bit controversial, and I'll talk about that a little bit when I talk about that inventory here in a minute. Plus, I know how smart some of you are. Some of you are already mad about that inventory, and that's all right with me. That's great. We'll talk about it. Okay, so now let's move on to talk about leadership styles. And we're going to talk about masculinity and femininity. So, at its very most masculine, this is what masculine leadership looks like. I am not saying all men do this when they're leaders. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, a woman can be masculine. But again, we're on a sliding scale, and I'm talking about extremes here. On the extreme masculine side, this is what a masculine leader looks like. He or she, probably he, because of how he's been conditioned, is very top-down. There is a clear leader. There's a clear person in charge. There's a clear bureaucracy, hierarchy, whatever you want to call it. That person makes decisions. No one questions those decisions. You may not know how the decision was made. He or she may not have involved anyone in the decision-making. He or she probably did not. All right? It is the way it is. And then we're not going to debate it. It's just the way it is. Very competitive and individualistic. Almost like a contest at work every day for who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser. And it's us against them, and it's you against me. There's only one of us going to win. And I will do whatever I have to do to win in a masculine style of leadership. Things are very compartmentalized in this style. So family and work, very separate. No such thing as a family-work balance in a masculine style. And if you have to choose one or the other, you're probably going to choose work. So what this means is if your kid is playing a 4 o'clock ball game and you work till 5 o'clock, that's when you clock in and out, probably not going to that ball game. Probably going to stay at work. You may not even make the 7 o'clock ball game. To the point. Masculine leader, not going to beat around the bush. Going to go right to the point. We aren't going to talk about it. We aren't going to converse about it. We're not going to talk about all the different sides of the issue. We're just going to get to the point, get this done. We've got time to sit around and talk. We've got time to talk. We've got things to do. No excuses with a masculine style of leadership. If you're asked to do something, you do it, and you meet the deadline. You have a death in the family? Too bad. You've got a deadline to meet. You better meet that deadline, which can put you in a bind. So let's talk about the feminine style of leadership. And these first two are pretty similar in that it's a more collectivist approach and a teamwork approach to leadership. And we're going to talk about things when we make decisions. The boss or the leader can be talked out of his or her decisions. It's not the be-all, end-all, say-all of when a decision is made. We can still talk about it. And we work together in this approach. So if you needed to go to a funeral, someone else knows how to do your job. You're not so competitive that somebody else doesn't know how to do your job. Feminine leaders are transparent. They talk about why they make decisions. And by the way, this can drive masculine people insane in a committee. They just want to know what you want them to do, you know. But we talk about it, we're transparent with it, we'll answer questions about our decisions. We kind of see this with our new provost. The brown bag lunches, where he encourages faculty to come and talk about decisions that have been made within academic affairs. That's a transparent approach to leadership. And he's not even here, so I wasn't sucking up or anything. Blending of work and home. Within a feminine style of leadership, we blend work and home a little bit more. So, for example, I think it's Working Mom magazine that puts out a top 100 list of companies to work for if you're a woman or family-oriented. And what these companies look like is they allow you to work from home sometimes. You don't have to put on all 40 hours at work. You can work from home the mornings, come in the afternoons. You can work at home 2 days a week, come in 3 days a week. I mean, they work out those sorts of things. There may be a daycare at work, which will allow you to blend work and home. I used to work at a university where there were playpens in the faculty offices because people would bring their babies to their office hours. So I never saw a baby in class, but I did see babies during office hours. And there's more empathy within a feminine style of leadership. You have a death in the family. Oh, we don't care if it's your third cousin. You know, take off work. Someone will cover you. And in this style of leadership, and then you can see this in the classroom too with different professors and whether they have a feminine or masculine style. The professors have more empathy are the ones who think about your life outside of the classroom. And if there's something going on with you, they usually recognize it and may even keep you after class saying, hey, what's up? You know, you're not acting like yourself. Those are the ones who are tend to be more empathetic and may even, you know, extend a deadline for you because of things that are going on in your life. Okay, so the BSRI, or the BIM Sex Role Inventory, is what we sent you to score. It's one way of scoring gender, okay? So this is how you score it for those of you who have it. Column 1 is your masculinity score. And again, if you don't have it, see me after class and I'll be happy to give you my email address so that I can get the link to you, all right? Column 1's masculinity score. Column 2 is the femininity score. Column 3 we're going to throw out. Those questions were questions that were gender neutral. So we're going to throw those out for right now. If you want a more complicated way of scoring this, though, you can go online. You can bring those scores back in. So looking at your scores, for those of you, the median on these scores is anywhere from 4.5 to 4.9 to 4.5 to 4.9, depending on what you read. All right? So for those of you who have a 4.5 or higher in both places, anyone want to tell me that they've done that? Brittany, can be on, aren't you, both of those? Yeah, okay, put your hand up. I'm pointing you out because you are said to be the most healthy when it comes to using gender. You are considered the androgynous group, and it is believed that you can very healthily move back and forth in scenarios and use whichever one you need to use, and that you have a good balance of those things. Okay? I'm not one of those people. And I'm getting ready to show you what my score is. I'm going to confess to you today in church. I'll talk to you about my gender, all right? Now, for those of you who have like 4 or 5 or higher in one and lower in the other, the one that's your dominant one is the one that you are said to be. All right? And those of you who have 4 or 5 and lower in both areas, you are said to be indifferential. And BIM doesn't have a whole lot of good things to say if you're in that category. You might want to look that up, all right? We're really all striving to be androgynous. And that's what BIM says. Okay, so my scores. This is not going to surprise you, those of you who know me. I have a masculine score of a 5.0 and a feminine score of a 3.7. Now, when I get to the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about why I think this has happened to me. I was not always like this, I don't think. All right? I want to talk to you a little. I'm going to take it there. I'm going to tell you about it here in a minute. But let's go back to the previous slide real quick so I can just talk to you about which of these characteristics I think I have or don't have. Again, those of you who know me can triangulate for me. You can witness for me, all right? On the masculine side, I think I am very to the point and I don't take excuses. And I think most of my students would agree with me on that. And I'm working on this. I'm trying to become more empathetic. I actually have a lot of admiration for people who are. And I've got colleagues in the room who I think are very empathetic. And I admire that a lot. I have a hard time just thinking about teaching and learning. I have a hard time finding balance with that with a syllabus. And so that's where my struggle is. And I'm working on it. But I definitely think I have those two bottom masculine characteristics. But looking over on the feminine side, I also think I'm very transparent. Like, everybody knows why I'm doing stuff. And that's why, I mean, my students who are here, that's why when we start talking about something, like we started talking about qualitative research yesterday in our interviewing class, I said to them, why are we doing this? And I'm going to come clean to them on Friday about why we're doing it. But I want them to tell me why we're doing it. You know, why would they need to do it? And so I talk about those sorts of things all the time. I talk about why I choose certain assignments for class with the students. And so I think I'm very transparent. So I have characteristics from both sides. I'm just more masculine dominant. All right? So I'm going to go to the second to the last slide here. Turn it over. Yeah. So I'm talking about be the change. I'm going to talk about this first point. I'm going to tell you why I think I've become more masculine. So if you want to be the change, here are some things I think you can do. If you want to support women in leadership and feminine styles in leadership, feminine and feminist, two different things, all right? I'll talk about that in a minute too. If you want to support those two things, women in leadership, feminine styles in leadership, here are some things you can do. First of all, you got to support the 30% rule. Let me tell you what we had before the 30% rule. Before the 30% rule, what we believed, and this is late 70s, moving into the early 80s, we start seeing women hit corporate America. And for those of you who don't believe me that was going on at that time, watch 80s cinema, baby boom, working girl. I mean, those are all, you know, reflections of what was going on, right? So when women started getting into corporate America in the 1980s, what feminists believe, coming out of the 70s, what feminists believed was, we'll send one woman up. If we can get one woman up to the top, it's kind of called the pipeline theory. If we can get one woman up to the top, because we don't have any at that point, then she can bring other women with her. But that's not what happened. And we're still buying into this theory, by the way. A lot of people are. What happened instead was one of two things with those women who made it to the top. They became men, because they had to. I've been in many a meeting where I've tried some feminine approaches to things, and I've gotten some eye rolls and some, like, virtual pats on the head, basically. Isn't that cute, you know? So they became men because they felt like they had to, and I felt like that happened to me. I felt like my transformation happened during my PhD program. If I was going to be taken seriously in the academy and in a PhD program, I had to be tough. Couldn't let anybody get to me. I had to be to the point, and I had to put up a tough exterior. That's where my transformation happened. The other thing that happens to women in that pipeline rule is they just shut up. They just quit talking because they're tired of people rolling their eyes at them. So what an author says, and I'll show you the book that you can go to read more about this, and then the last slide. What Tar Whelan says is this: if we will get 30% of our top leadership full of women, we don't even need 50%, we just need 30%. They can find each other, and they can come together, and they can make a difference. She goes as far to say, if this would have happened in Congress a long time ago, we would have solved health care a long time ago. We would have solved universal child care a long time ago. She goes as far to say that. The next thing on the list is value feminine leadership characteristics, whether they're in men or women. Going back to 2 slides before and all those things I showed you on the feminine side, there's some good stuff on that. I'd like to work for a boss who has a lot of those characteristics. In fact, I kind of do. But we need to value both men and women who hold these. Here's what we know from the research. Men who have feminine characteristics are still considered more competent than women who have the same characteristics. It's just a package. It's just a sex difference, not a gender difference, but we value the man more than the woman. And so what you can do is value both sexes. Women, you need to support each other. I know what's caused this. I think I know. And that's that pipeline rule. When you only think one of you is going to make it to the top, you're going to fight. And you're going to tear each other down. And it's not just women. I mean, we see this with people of color too, men of color too. They only think one of them's going to make it. And so you need to quit doing that. We've got to support each other. And if we can support that 30% rule, it'd be a whole lot easier for us to support each other. And so when a woman makes a great comment in a meeting, support her on it. Don't go with the dudes afterwards and talk bad about her, you know? Support her on it. Tell her she did a great job. Send her an email. Create that climate. That's for you men, too. Men need to support the women, too. Women negotiate your salaries and benefits. It's very well known women make 76 cents on every man's dollar. That's still very true. That statistic is put out by the American Association of University Women. It's just recently been put out again with a new survey. I think it went from 72 to 76 maybe in like 20 years, 4 cents. This is not completely the patriarchy's fault or your male boss's fault. It's kind of your fault too. Because women, we aren't the best feminine leaders, not just women, we're not the best at negotiation. And men, masculine people are. They will ask for more money when they take a job. They will go in when it's not time to get a raise and ask for one. We need to do that too. We need to value feminine leaders. We need to value who we are and what we have to offer. And ask for a raise when you deserve it. Don't be afraid of the word feminist. I had to get this in there. Those of you who know me, you know I had to say this. All feminist means is that you believe in equal opportunities for all people. That's all it means. And so, a woman who is presented with all of her options and then can make a decision about what she wants to do with her life is following a feminist theory. So if she is given all her options and she chooses, not oppressed, but chooses to be a stay-at-home mom, she can be a stay-at-home mom and a feminist because it was her decision. And she had the option of going to the work world, or the outside of home work world, and decided to stay home. Men, you can do the same thing. Present with all your options. Some of you have been impressed into working in corporate America and you don't want to be. You can stay home too. You know, you can make that choice if your family can afford it. No, that's a whole another lecture. Teach that class in the fall if any of you are interested. Finally, read. And I'm going to sit down after this one. You need to read. You need to keep up with trends. You need to know what's going on. And here is a book list for you. 3 books up there. I'm teaching a women in leadership course this summer. It's a grad level course, so probably if you can't take it, if you would like to take it, talk with me. It's a communication course. I take book selection very seriously in my classes, and so I got this. This is whittled down from about 15 books. It's from that book list you originally had sent me, that Laura had originally sent me. These are my 3 favorite from that list. And Dr. Barr, you'll notice Hegelson's put out a new book. Yes. Hegelson put out a very famous book in the early 90s called The Female Advantage. But she has put out a new book, also very good. If you're only going to get one of those books, I would suggest you get the one last on the list. If you're only going to buy one. That's the one, Renee, I think you reading, and then Cari, I think you picked up that book too. I like that book a lot. It has encouraged me to take some rest, and I like it a lot. So it's the one I would encourage you to get. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues here, whom I support wholeheartedly in all that they do.
She really does, and I know the students that have had her can say the same thing. Thanks, Amy. Mm-hmm. I thought I would talk, actually first, for those that I know in the class or in the room, can anyone guess what my score is on the masculine score? More feminine? Anyone else? I get a nod on this. Guess what? I'm a 6 on masculinity. And listen, and a 5.1 on feminine. I was shocked. But let me talk. I've been pondering this because I literally identify with the descriptions of the feminine approach. I mean, everything that Amy talked about, I emotionally connect to. But I think the reason why I score higher on the masculine side is because of my job and the career path that I've taken. Remember that she talked about the gender is conditional and it's learned and it's a sliding scale. These are traits that I've learned in order to be successful in my career. And I it's interesting. I find this very interesting. So in prepping for this class, I wanted to think about how would I describe my leadership style. And I would say for me, my style is relational. One of my strengths, for those who have done the strengths quest before, my number one strength is relator. And so I'm very relational in my approach to leadership and my connection with students and my colleagues and the people that I work with and for. I'd like my leadership style to be value-based, that I'm driven by core values that I have for myself and even for the organization that I'm working with. And the third point of my leadership style is empowering. And what that means to me is I hope that in my interactions with the individuals that I either meet one time or see every single day, I hope that I am in some way empowering them to go do and be whatever it is that they're aspiring to be or do or overcome. How did I get to this point of defining what my leadership means to me? I would say that over the years, I think it's a genuine openness to learn and grow for myself. I'd like to think of myself as humble in knowing that I can learn from anyone. And so with that thought process, getting to how I currently define leadership, I think that openness to learning and growing through experiences. Unfortunately, you learn more from your bad experiences than your good experiences. So taking those experiences, I think, has really shaped me. And also building knowledge. Amy talked about reading. I try to read a lot, whether it's driven by academic requirements. As many of you know, I'm in the last stages of my doctorate program, and so when you're in school, you read what you're guided to read by your faculty members. But I do a lot of other reading too, and I've got colleagues that send me stuff. I think Amy's had me read more stuff lately than I ever imagined. The other thing too, that how I've gotten to this point in my life with what leadership means to me, and even in my job, is the investment that others made in me. And the reality is I'm in my current position today because of the men supervisors that I've had in my career who've taken the time to mentor me. And so, and I say that, I'm trying to think back, I've only had two direct female supervisors in I graduated in 94 from undergrad, so I have how many years that is, I can't even count right now. So almost 20 years, I've only had 2 female supervisors. And then the third piece of how I've come to my definition of leadership is from that internal drive. I don't know how to explain it, but there's something inside of me that I think some of it is from growing up, and you want to do more and be more, from the experiences that you've had as a youth. I think that's some of my internal drive. And I've always known that if I could possibly make a difference, and whatever the difference, I remember being a freshman in college, and I was really, really shy. And I remember talking to a friend and telling her, I really want to do something, but I just don't know what it is, and I'm too shy. And she said, well, then let's do it together. And I had a great experience. My position, I want to talk just briefly back to my score, and this masculine score, and my position. I am the Dean of Student Affairs, and in the Northeastern structure, I report directly to the president. I serve on what's called the President's Cabinet. That means that there are, 4 vice presidents, 1 assistant to the president, and me. Of the 6 of us, right, 6, I'm the only female. So, and that's an interesting dynamic. Let me add to this. Not only am I the only female in the cabinet, but all of them are old enough to be my dad. Seriously. So, and it's interesting, the dynamic that occurs. We meet every Tuesday morning from 9 o'clock in the morning to noon, 1, sometimes later. That depends on how much dialogue is going on. And many times throughout the week, we'll have another meeting or two to follow up on topics that we just couldn't get to on the Tuesday. And in order to be heard, I have to, from time to time, I guess, be in that dominant role. I have to speak up. I probably come off pretty timid. Like, if you were just to look at me, you might assume that I'm quiet or timid. And reality is I'm not. I know that I have to be engaged and I have to be aware. And I also know that I have to have strong relationships with the people in that room in order to be heard. So, I think that masculine score has come from the environment that I work in. Ironically, the staff that works for me are all female. Isn't that interesting dynamic there? So, challenges that I regularly face in my position, I tend to get prejudged based off of my appearance. I'm 5'2" on a really good day with high heels. I also look at least 10 years younger than I am.
Not to brag.
It's funny though, I find that as negative in a sense, and I hate that sometimes, that I find that the youthfulness that I look, and if you saw my parents, I come by it naturally, but I find that as a negative. My age, which I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 this year. And I am on a daily basis, even this morning, on a regular basis, am always referred to as the young one in the crowd. This morning I went to an office birthday party, not my own office. I just went with a colleague, and in that dynamic, I was referred to as the youngest one in the room. I'm not really sure if I was, but I'm always referred to the young one. And that's discouraging. It is, because I feel like you get a lack of respect from it. But it is what it is. So you just move on. One of the challenges that I face is being a woman in the male-dominated peer group that I'm in. The other is the pressure that I feel as a senior officer within a larger organization, and knowing that people are watching me at every moment to see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and if I'm being successful or not. I probably put more pressure on myself than anyone else. And the fourth point on the challenges that I regularly face is a feeling of being alone. Sometimes have you ever heard that phrase of it's lonely at the top? It's lonely. In the sense of there are times that I can't process with someone maybe an experience that I had in a meeting or a personnel issue that's going on. It's one of the great responsibilities of taking on a leadership role in any organization is that there's a time and a place to talk about things. And when you're in a leadership role, you can never talk about people. You shouldn't, or you shouldn't if you want to live with integrity. You can't necessarily talk about those personal challenges that are going on. And so sometimes it's lonely. But with all that, the dynamic people that you get to meet and you work with can be pretty amazing. I think I'm going to hold off at this point, and maybe if we have time, share a quick couple of lessons that I've learned. I'm going to turn it over to Cari.
Unmute myself. Hello, everybody. My name is Cari Keller. I have to stand and talk, and I have to wave my hands around. It's just what I do.
She's a lawyer.
I am indeed a lawyer. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to say that some of the leaders that I look up to and respect are sitting in the room with us today. Dr. Cambiana, Dr. Zier, Dr. Barr. These two at this table have been amazing role models to me here at the university. And I actually feel that I've only gotten the opportunity to develop my leadership style at the university here in the last few years. Although I have been here since 1994. I actually kind of grew up at NSU. I went to school here. I believe that NSU's programs are amazing developmental programs for pursuing your academic goals, but also pursuing leadership roles out in the real world. And I feel that NSU is a wonderful place to work, and I've spent my life here, and very happily so, have gotten to know a lot of great people that have shaped me. But just to kind of touch upon some of the things that they were talking about and then engage in a conversation with you about those if I can, each one shared why they might be a little more masculine on the BEM. And I also scored more masculine on the BEM than feminine, but less masculine than any of my colleagues scored on the BEM. And when we're around each other, I'm kind of the dude, right? I grew up in the military. I have a jet mechanic for a dad who treated me like a son. That's why I think, I had to be tough. I was older than my siblings. I was responsible for my siblings, and there were no excuses. If they got hurt or if something happened with them, it was on me, right? So I learned accountability and responsibility real quick. So I was shocked at my score. Now, when I went through the BEM, I actually read the scoring structure before, and that's, I know I'm not supposed to do that, but for those of you that know me, I have to read everything before I do it. I have to go from start to finish. Like when I'm shopping, if I'm gonna, buy a widget, I have to go to every store that sells widgets, and then I'll go back to the widget store I want to buy it from. So I had to read the whole thing to make sure I understood what I was supposed to do, and that completely corrupted, I'm sure, my scores because I wanted to be feminine. I'm a girl. Turns out, not so much, right? Even if I was trying to be more feminine, it didn't work out. I tend to be a little bit more masculine. And you know what? That's okay. I am who I am. So I think that I'm probably a little more masculine in my approach because I was treated more masculine in my family structure and required to be a little more masculine in my family structure. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for the feminine leadership style to shine, and that's all right. How do I bring it into the classroom? How do I bring it into my position as chair of my department, or if I'm with working on committees, etc.? I think I also identify with the column on the right of your slide with the feminist or feminine leadership column. So I'm going to ask you guys, what does leadership mean to you? I'd like to get a couple of different definitions out here. If I say, what's leadership, you say, what are we talking about here? Not why, but what. What is this topic about?
Problem solving.
Problem solving. Okay.
Creativity.
Okay. Leadership is about problem solving and what?
Creativity.
Creativity. Anyone else?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Opportunity for what, sir?
Opportunity to take advantage of things that fall in your path.
Okay.
That need leadership.
Okay. So you want to solve a problem, meet an opportunity, develop that creativity, and don't you want to encourage others to follow? Right? You want to encourage others to help you and assist you. So what are a couple of traits that are important to you to be leaders?
Empowerment.
Empowerment?
Confidence.
Integrity?
Someone who can inspire. Inspirational.
Inspirational? Okay, what does empowerment mean to you?
To be able to express my opinion, tell why I feel that way, and how it will make a difference. And being allowed to do
the ability to communicate, but also the ability to be heard?
Yes.
Okay. What does integrity mean to you?
Doing the right thing when no one's watching.
That's a good definition. That's exactly the definition I would have said. Doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And you said inspiration? What's that mean to you?
Someone who can make you want to do something. Like, look at your life and like, I can be better.
Mm-hmm.
And that person makes you want to be better.
There's another word that I usually associate with that, and it's charisma. That most people that I am drawn to in a leadership sense, they have this charisma. And I like your term a little better because I think it is focused more on the goal of leadership. If I were going to answer that question, I would have said two things. One is adaptability. Okay? I think that one of the most important traits of leadership is adaptability. And the second most important trait is honesty, to me. Sorry about that. So what I would like to explore with you is whether or not the two traits as I see them in the gender sense of leadership. Okay? Is there a feminine version of adaptability and a masculine version of adaptability, and a feminine version of honesty and a masculine version of honesty? And there may not be. I don't know. I'm not a researcher in this area, but I'm curious. Because I think there is. Okay, so a woman in the room, what does adaptability mean to you, and how would it be important to leadership?
I think adaptability is important because you need to be able to look at not only one point of view, but several points of view, and be able to adapt your style to that and what is needed at the moment, not just what you think is the one way to go.
Okay. So,
Cari, they need to use their mics.
oh, y'all don't forget to push the button.
Yeah, mine's on.
Okay. So, if I heard you right, you think adaptability is the ability to be open to different points of view and
be able
to engage with those.
And to be able to change what you need to do to fit that.
Okay. A man.
Did you have a feminine measure or masculine measure?
I didn't take the test.
Okay.
A man. Yes, sir.
I think it's, personally, I think it's the ability to take on any situation, to feel that from where you stand in any situation, that no matter what challenge comes at you, you can handle it.
Okay, challenge-based.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that a little more on the masculine side.
What was your measure? Did you take it?
I was kind of androgynous, but I was like 2.2% higher masculine. So.
If I were defining the term, when I think about it as it relates to leadership, I think about it as the ability to conform to the people that you're trying to solve a problem with. And by conform, I definitely don't mean change who I am as a person so that they will like me, but be able to communicate with them and encourage them to move in the direction that will solve the problem. Okay? So my way of looking at it, do you think it's more like this gentleman? What's your name?
It's Chris.
Chris. More like Chris?
I'm Tessa.
Chris or Tessa? Or is it completely different?
It's a mixture.
Kind of the mixture of both? Anyone else think that adaptability means something different? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a microphone, but I think it's interesting that his was more of like a physical sense, like a physical circumstances, and hers was more of a emotional kind of circumstance, like different points of view, and his was actually a situation, if that makes any sense.
Right, and I don't know, for the people in the distant site, she said that she thought it was interesting that his was more of the physical sense and the female perception was more of the emotional sense. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to give you an answer to the question, I'm just raising the question. Okay, that's what lawyers do. We raise the argument and then let you guys fight it out.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yeah.
We'll gladly fight it out.
Your Honor. Anyone else? Any other perceptions of adaptability?
Flexibility.
Yes, sir.
I think part of it has to do with being able to change your mind and realize that other people might know more than you do about the subject.
Kind of a humbleness.
Yeah.
Right. Not coming in feeling or acting or giving the perception, I'm the leader, I know everything, you don't, you follow me.
I think that goes back to what I said about being open to everyone's point of view. You have to be able to take a step back and look away from what you're wanting to do and be able to look all around you and to see what other people may see, because there are people who may know more about it than you.
I would say both those styles would be more feminine. You know, the transparency, right, that we talked about earlier, and the collectivist approach. You know?
And that's a good segue into what I feel is a second critical trait of leadership. And I don't want to say most important because it's hard to say what the most important traits are of leadership, but critical traits of leadership. The second one to me is honesty. And I would like, again, to flesh out, is there a difference in opinion of what honesty might mean? What does honesty mean to you? the female perception as it relates to leadership. I don't mean just to tell the truth, because it's different than that. What is honesty in leadership? At least to me, it's different. Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of going to sound horrible, but honesty in leadership to me is telling people what they need to know to get what they have to get done.
Okay.
If they don't need to know something that might hinder them, then they don't need to know it.
Okay. Actually, I kind of had a definition similar to that, in the sense that I think the masculine viewpoint of honesty in leadership
I know,
is...
How did you score, Nicole?
I got a 5.9 on masculine, 4.45 on feminine.
Okay. She's close to androgyny, though.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm really still, because I'm not androgynous in these scores. Much more. I scored not awfully high on the masculine. I was 4.65. I scored 3.7 on the female. So, not androgynous. I'm not really man-like, and I'm not really female-like. So I don't know what I am yet. Figuring me out as I go along. So I think that that's more masculine, because it's about the information and giving the people how much they need to know, but retaining control. Okay, it's retaining control in the position as opposed to collectively sharing that. Any other viewpoints on what honesty might mean as it relates to leadership?
I think that in my experiences with female and male, masculine leaders, not necessarily gender, but a female feminist leader will talk more about the truth about the way she feels about the situation, and the masculine leader, in my experience, tends to talk more about their honesty and the facts.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Have you ever followed someone that you disagreed with, but they were persistent in their belief? They believed it, you believed in them, so you followed them? Does that make sense? I think that that's kind of what you're saying, that there's honesty, in fact, is still subject to perception. Take the union demonstration in Wisconsin. Both sides have good points. There is right and wrong in both sides. I may not agree 100% with a side and follow it, but believe 100% in the leader and follow them. Okay, so, honesty in the mission, I think, is what that gets to. Is that more feminine or more masculine? These are my culture people. They help me.
Explain that to me again. What you think honesty? How honest? Say that to me again. What you just said about the union.
What I understood her to say, and I hope I'm understanding her correctly here, is that there's a difference between honesty in fact and honesty in position.
Tell me your name.
Brittany.
Brittany. I heard what Brittany said. I was with Brittany. I'm with her. So I thought that was a really good, perceptive comment. But you said something about the union. What did you just say about the union?
That there's right and wrong on each side, but you can go with a side even if you don't agree with it 100%. You're following the people leading it because you believe in them. That's another form of honesty.
Well, I think when we start talking relational, we're probably talking more on the feminine side of the gender scale. Yeah, I mean, it's that whole compartmentalization on the masculine side that keeps you from doing that. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thank you for the applause. I think I heard something.
Yes, sir.
I'm an interloper, so I don't have a microphone, but maybe everyone can hear me anyway. I've spent my life in the academic world, and a term that used to be very common in academia, but not in the rest of the world, especially corporate and political, and oftentimes, I beg your pardon, in the legal profession, is what I call intellectual honesty. And when we began to see more women coming into academia, which is my experience, I began to see and hear a great deal more intellectual honesty than I had previously heard from male colleagues or professors.
And sir, what's your name?
David Hilligoss.
And Mr. Hilligoss is talking about intellectual honesty, just in case the people at a distant site didn't hear it. And he's saying that when he came into academia, the level of intellectual honesty, the more women that came into academia, you saw an increase in intellectual honesty. Okay? What's the difference? What's intellectual honesty and how is that different? Okay. Well, somebody answer this and then I gotta go.
I think at the core we're talking about transparency.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, intellectual transparency, intellectual honesty can mean almost anything as long as it relates to you being honest with yourself, you being honest with others, you being transparent about what you're doing with people while you're doing it. It's...
Oh, you got applause too.
Well, and I think that that kind of brings us back to the very beginning in the female definition of honesty was process and emotional oriented.
Well, I don't think that intellectual honesty just comes from emotional, though. I know that a lot of the honesty, especially whenever you're talking in a, with the talks that we have in our women's studies course, it comes from things that are based on fact, things that we've read in articles, things we've read in our books. We don't just sit there and say, oh, this is just how I feel, so it's an opinion. We try to base our opinions on facts, and it helps us see a more grounded view of what's going on in our world. And I think that helps change how people think and how people act in a more professional setting, is the change of the intellectual honesty.
Right. Very good. Yes, ma'am.
To sum it all up, I think it's you're thinking about how you're going to be honest. You're going to tell them what they need to know, but you're going to think about how you tell it to them. It's that more empathetic kind of thinking is kind of what I'm seeing from the feminine side of you. And I didn't take the thing, but I know I'd be like 6-point feminine, so.
You think you'd be on the feminine side?
Absolutely.
You go take it, just Google BIM, sex role inventory, and you'll find it. It's everywhere. You'll find it.
And I thought that I would be too. So,
We may have tainted some of you haven't taken it yet.
Yeah. Actually, we all thought I would be the man.
Yeah. Well, and I thought that because Cari works with so many men in criminal justice and legal studies, I thought she'd be pretty masculine.
Thank you, everybody, for the dialogue.
what questions do you all have for us? We have a few minutes left. Got a couple of minutes.
Okay, so this has to go with honesty. Whenever a leader makes a mistake and they fess up to it, say, hey, I did wrong in this, do you guys view that as more feminine or more masculine?
Depends why they had to confess.
Clarification?
Yeah, if it's a PR move, they're being told by their PR people, go say sorry, And if they don't really mean it, then I don't see that. I see that as being very masculine and just doing what you need to do for the bottom line. Not because it's right, but because it's what you have to do.
I think that goes back to integrity.
Mm-hmm. You're using your mic, right? We've already established this. You're using your mic.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the bad score again? Because I think I got too low. I don't
want to say bad.
But is it lower than
a 4 or 5? You're under the median.
I'm in the 3s.
For both.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's
So you're bad.
I was wondering, as women in leadership and women who've come into leadership, I know you've all faced obstacles where you were doubted simply because you're a woman. And what are some of the secret tricks that you guys have learned? Maybe something that simply works for you of how you have combated that in your career to continue to show that you are a leader regardless of your gender.
Regardless of our sex.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's the package everyone sees,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
Yesterday, Laura and I mean, this happens, it still happens. Don't think we're not still facing challenges. Yesterday, Laura and I got an email about this.
Yeah, listen to this.
What? About this, and it's a mid-ranking person on this campus who had sent us a photoshopped image of 3 women, 3 witches, stirring something in a, what are those things called? Cauldron?
Witches.
Yeah, that'll is it Macbeth that image is from? I'm looking at my friend Melissa Strong literature, and on the front of it, it said, "Women in Leadership."
I didn't receive that, and it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. And he asked if this was just for women or if he could be here today.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Did you tell him he's not here, by the way?
It wasn't Chuck. I promise you.
Being so fun, though, that those kind of things I think are really demeaning. I mean, that's basically saying that we have no power, we have no ability to have power or to have any kind of leadership.
Well, you're in the Women and Gender Studies course. As we've been working on getting that minor accepted, we face the same sort of struggles, the same sort of nasty, emails.
Why do you think they do that? Do you think they
Strip
do
us
that
of power.
out of
Fear. But to make this clear, are we not just talking about women? We're talking about feminists, correct? The feminist leadership, or are we just talking about women?
Well, I
think we've moved into women.
Well, I think there's two issues. There's feminine leaders and there's women leaders. I would like for us to be more accepting of feminine leadership as a legitimate style of leadership, whether that packages a woman or man.
To answer your question, at least from my perspective, I think for me, and I'm still in this journey, as we all are, but for me, I've learned to not dwell on it. And my actions will prove that I am worthy of the role and responsibilities that I've been honored to do. And so I think that's, for me and my experiences so far, to ignore that kind of criticism, and to hold on to my faith. I don't care what faith you are, I believe that you should have some type of guiding power, because in those rocky times you've got to have that something to hold on to. And so for me, that's what gets me through those rough times.
Did you respond to that email yesterday?
No. And what I do is I don't respond. I delete it.
I asked him if he was in the pot. That was my response.
And you know what? Maybe I should respond, because just your sigh right there makes me think I don't respond, so does that empower that person?
Well, how do you necessarily know when to take it on the chin and just say, all right, well,
I don't.
it's just a boy being a boy?
No, you never take it on the chin.
And
And I don't mean that as in an aggressive way, honestly, I don't. And I'm sorry that I cut you off there, but I don't think anyone in any position in any gender should ever let someone else treat them badly and not try to make a difference with it. And I don't know if this is a gender deal, but I personally am a challenge junkie, and if someone puts me to the challenge based upon my gender, then I will lay in wait for the opportunity to prove myself to that specific individual. Not in an aggressive way, but in a I am good enough, and you will have to understand that way. And I think that
we had lunch last week, and something I had said to them, and I mean this, I've had to work harder than a lot of people around me, and I accept that. And it's because I am a woman, I feel that way. It's also because I'm young. I became the youngest chair on our campus last year. I'm young. And because I don't fit the society standard of beauty, I feel like I had to work really hard. But with that said, and I've said this to Laura before, this probably embarrassed her, but Laura's very attractive. And so Laura also has her own discrimination she has to face because of that. So, and Cari's pretty cute too, even if she's the dude.
my dean called me the senior faculty one time because I've been here so long, but I'm not old.
Brent.
I'm just curious to know, why do we continue to use the terms masculine and feminine when we're talking about leadership? I think that it almost perpetuates this concept that men have a masculine form of leadership traditionally, and that women have a feminine form of leadership. Because if, I guess I don't feel like we should be we should allow certain cultural norms and gender schemas as we become higher and better educated, that those are things that we should not necessarily attempt to always play into. And so I guess I feel like whenever we use those things, we're just perpetuating that. Why don't we just use like a different term completely?
I'm a reclaimer. I'm one of those people who likes to take terms that may have negative connotations with them and try to reclaim them. And so if you think femininity and leadership is a negative thing, I want to change your mind. And so I don't think we have to rename it. I think we need to start valuing feminine leadership. Call it that.
I agree. I mean, when it comes to being masculine or feminine, those are styles of leadership. Those are things that define different styles. I have a different style than she does. I have a different style than he does.
And you have a different style today than you may have in a year.
Exactly.
Depending on
exactly.
your experiences,
I think that
what you've read,
a name doesn't qualify it as a perpetuation. That's just a way to name it. That's just explaining that this is a more masculine form. It doesn't mean it has to be a male. This is a more feminine form. We understand those terminologies, therefore we can classify it a little bit more. Feminine, more empathic, more ability to include everybody. Men, more single-minded, more competitive. There are certain stereotypes.
Masculine, not men.
Sorry,
yeah.
masculine.
I think, Brent, I think that's the key, is in that we've got some natural scripts. Notice how many times today we've naturally reverted to masculine as men and feminine as female, and that's because we've got some we've been raised in this environment. So part of this, the reason why we're having this today, and the reason why we're here in higher ed, is to challenge our thinking and expand beyond that. So we're just bringing this awareness of styles and hopefully will help us make change, leadership and change. We're about out of time, and I know there was just a few more quick lessons I wanted to share, because if there's some things that I could leave with you, I want to share these things and see if you have anything you want to quickly add. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in my leadership role is the lesson of forgiveness. And what I mean by that is twofold. One, it's so easy to be the critic of another person in a leadership role, of your boss, of whoever you see in a leadership role. And so many times we need to forgive them, because you got to realize they're human, and that no one comes to work to do a crappy job. Everyone wants to do a good job. And that also means that people that you're leading, you have to forgive them too. People make mistakes, and so that's one lesson I've learned. It's about being a forgiving person. The other lesson I've learned is the power of holding others in high regard. Sometimes we're very naturally scripted to think that a person is negative about a person, or naturally go to what you perceive as their inabilities. And I found that I feel better and I work better and I'm a stronger person when I hold people in high regard. And so that's one of the lessons I've learned. I've also learned that it's not about me, even though I sure would like it to be about me. The reality is it's hardly ever about me, but it's about the other person. And I shared this a minute ago. Faith really keeps you grounded. And then value the critics. Value those who have some opinion that either about you or what you're doing, because then that makes you stronger. You can take what's being said and either make change or be aware. So value the critics whether you like it or not. And probably the most important thing I've learned is that you have to take care of your people. If you're honored by being in a leadership role, you have to take care of the people that you're leading. And that could be leadership at home with your family, or that could be leadership at work, or whatever organization that you're in. Because if you don't take care of your people, you can't lead. So those are my closing thoughts.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you all for being such a great audience. You have some great nonverbals, and that's always fun to be up here talking to a group that's so into it. So that's really cool. Secondly, I want to say I like dudes. I know some people think that if you're a feminist, you must be a male hater, a man hater. I'm not that at all. I value men. I work with a lot of guys. And I will tell you, I also went to school here. We all three did. We all three have degrees from here. And the guys I now chair were my professors, and they are some of my biggest cheerleaders, without a doubt. And I appreciate them, and I appreciate how they hold me up. And they're good feminist men, and I like them a lot. And so I want to say that. And then one more thing. Today at 4 o'clock, speaking of supporting women, Terry Baker and Connie Henshaw will be speaking in room 109 in Seminary Hall about the book they wrote called Women Who Pioneered Oklahoma. 4 o'clock today, Seminary Hall 109. You're all welcome to attend that. And this weekend is Vagina Monologues. I would encourage you all to go out and see that. They are looking for help to set up today at 4:30. Yes. Today at 4:30 and tomorrow at 4:30 at the Jazz Lab. If any of you'd like to go and help them, they can use that.
Just a word on that. It is a benefit
for helping crisis, helping crisis,
and for the Haiti, the women in Haiti.
Right. So money goes to a good place. If you've never seen them, I strongly suggest you go. But
it's hilarious.
Check your conservatism. You have a hard time sitting there. But it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Okay, Cari, do you want to say something?
To wrap it up, I would like to say I think that one of the most important things that you all can do now as students is just to be observant. There are leaders among you, your colleagues, your classmates, maybe you. Leadership begins with you. And your role models in the classroom, your professors, the administrators that run the show that enable you to take the classes that you take. Be observant of them on a personal level, not just listening to the words that they speak in the classroom or however you're communicating through Blackboard, whatever. There's so much that they have to offer that you can learn and take with you. Some of it will work for you, some of it won't, but you don't know until you observe everything, and keep an open mind. She's mentioned feminist a lot. I'm kind of a reluctant feminist because I'm working my way into it. I'm growing into my life, and I will for the rest of my life. And you guys can do that. You don't have to know who you are right now, and that's who you will be for the rest of your life. Every day is a growth process. Let it go at the door if it was bad. Pick it up if it was good, and move on with it. All right? Thank you guys very, very much.